Yeah, I think we can get this started. So, uh, this one, so we're talking body love, being comfortable in your skin, and I um I found myself having a little bit of like, do I go here? Who am I? Maybe I shouldn't. Like I had a lot of that going on, and when I was kind of writing all this stuff out, like my notes and stuff, and like writing the blog post and kind of getting everything organized to kind of like sit down and do it. Um, I was really surprised at, I'll say, the programming that I realized that we generally have um, around fitting in our bodies and being accepting of things and internal versus external validation and like all these things. So it was an interesting trip down, memory lane as I kind of have to reflect when I do, when I write all this stuff and then get to talk to you. So, really interesting process going through that, and also kind of just the conversations that we're having in the self care course. It's interesting timing, I'll say, but the timing is for a reason. So we are in February. We are in what I'm going to call Love Month. So whether it is, you know, love with a significant other, love for yourself or with yourself, um, we've got Valentine's Day and all that. So the timing definitely is calendar year wise perfect. But I'll say just from a this point in time in, I don't want to say history, but our calendar year, it feels it feels very relevant and pertinent now because um, we've been doing a lot of, many people have been doing a lot of digging, and yeah, just uncovering the layers and figuring out who we are and what we are and what we like and those types of things. Um, no, that was actually my computer. That was the computer doing something crazy. Seems to have died down, but let me know if it doesn't. Yeah, so we've been evaluating things, and I think the whole concept of self care, the whole concept of appreciating and loving ourselves for who we are kind of gets lost in the mix because of all of the stress and the obligations and like all those things that we have every day. So that's where we're headed. Kind of the journey to get more comfortable in our own skin. That's kind of ultimately what I'm titling this is how to get more comfortable in our own skin. And I know the journey for me has been quite the journey, and day to day it still ends up being one way or another, but it's still a journey. We're still on it. We're still on the bandwagon here. So yeah, that's where we start. How do we get further along on this self acceptance, self love, body acceptance journey? Well, for me, I had to start at the beginning. Um, I was thinking back to the first time I realized that there was something I didn't like about my body. And I don't know if you can also do the same. Like, if you think back, when was the first time you realized that you thought something other than, I'm okay? Like, there's nothing wrong. Everything's good. I've got two arms, two legs. Everything's good. Organs are working. Is there a time where you can remember that that was not the case? Like, almost like a switch flipping. So I asked that question of myself. I I actually did. I had a well, not really a moment, but there's a picture. There's a picture that was taken of me at maybe like 7-ish years old, and I'm standing in the backyard in at our house, And I I remember looking at the picture. So like not at that age, but maybe like a year or two later. I remember looking at the picture and not liking what I saw. And it was very clear, very distinct. And really it was the picture was so I grew up in Southern California, so I was like I'm, in the backyard by the pool wearing shorts, and I didn't like the shape of my legs. Like I didn't like the way that they looked. And granted, I'm 7, I'm growing. Things are going to shift eventually. And I remember looking at that picture, even at a young age, so like not the 7ish, but maybe like 9 or 10, and thinking, I don't like what I see. In the moment when I took the picture, or when the picture was taken, I'm a kid. I'm playing. I'm yelling. I used to be the loudest one on the cul-de-sac. Um, I'm being a kid. I'm enjoying life. I'm happy. But there was something that inherently was wrong in my mind because I didn't like the way my legs looked, and I knew that bugged me. But I was a kid. I went on and I did my thing. And I also know that there's also a picture of me taken in preschool, so like 4-ish years old, 3, 4 years old, and I was laughing. I had on my favorite outfit. I had just gotten my hair done, and I was laughing in the picture, like perfectly happy. And I realized that in both of those pictures, like I was happy. Um, the younger version of me, so the preschool picture, it wasn't full body, but um, I know that like that was the same person. And I started to think about, okay, well, how did I go from young, energetic, free spirit, running up and down the streets, and not a care in the world, to I don't like what I see? And then the question also became like, what was it that I didn't see that like I felt fault with? I don't know if I felt fault, but there was something just that I didn't like. And Chrissy was saying that she said that it used to be an all or nothing that was holding me back. Yeah, change here, change that. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I started walking back. Like, what happened? And knowing that I was genuinely happy in both of the pictures, like what actually happened. So then, I'm recounting childhood, and I'm thinking about the programming that ultimately is put in us, or that we're exposed to, or the ideas or the things that our family and friends and society and people, things that we're exposed to, television, media, things that we're exposed to, tell us what is right, is wrong, is beautiful, is acceptable, is, this type of behavior is dot dot dot, or this appearance is dot dot dot. So we get these messages kind of coming in saying, okay, this is what looks good, this is what looks bad, this is when you feel good, this is when you feel bad, this is acceptable behavior, this is not acceptable behavior. And I started thinking about if that was true for me, like the beauty ideals and what was acceptable, and kind of what I needed to do to be accepted by those around me. And I did in fact believe that there were certain things that were acceptable, that were pretty, or desirable, um, or not desirable. So both ends of the spectrum here. So I thought, okay, well, if that's what I thought, then a lot of people probably think the same thing. Like, we have the magazines and the TV and the movies and like all the things that I just mentioned, saying this is right, this is wrong, this is beauty, this is not. And then we start to look at ourselves and say, okay, well, I don't have that, so therefore something must be wrong. Or I didn't have that experience, so therefore I might not be good enough. Or, insert whatever the comment or belief is. But I realized that some of the things that I saw as flaws, they were not flaws. They are not flaws. They are things that are different that I didn't understand. And when understanding kind of the difference or the change happens, then we see we're okay. Like we were okay the whole time, but like we're okay now as well. So that was really eye opening for me. Like realizing that I had been making myself wrong based on some sort of assessment that, the criteria, I had no control over the criteria. It was just messages that was being put in. And not to say that, I didn't hear the, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're athletic, you're like all these things, but on some levels I couldn't hear it and accept it because I had that internal dialogue of something's wrong because I don't look like all the other people. And, enter puberty, and, we're all going crazy at puberty. Things are developing and changing at different rates, and we don't understand it. We don't know what to do with it. So, we tease each other and bullying and fights and, withdrawing and like all those things. Like so many things happening at all of the same time. And, we all end up being different with height and developing things, and you know what I mean. And I started puberty early. So anyone who started puberty early, like things are kind of like, it's a little dicey for a little bit because you just don't understand. And then you're wondering why you and not the others. Yeah, and I was teased. I was teased and I was bullied for a little bit. For a little bit. I remember it. I remember all of the people. I remember just about all of the situations, and it was rough, and we move on. But yeah, so we know kids in middle school and like all that. It can be difficult for all of us. So as I'm recounting all of this, I'm thinking about like the love and the acceptance and ultimately being comfortable. And because I had kind of that going on, I was not comfortable. I was kind of your ultimate chameleon. And I see how these situations where, we're all trying to fit in, we're all trying to compete for attention, we're trying to compete for acceptance, we're trying to seek that external validation because that's all we know. We bend over backwards and contort ourselves sometimes to do the things that the people around us approve of so we can then be approved. But that's when it can get a little messy. Like I said, the bullying, the teasing, body shaming, there's worse things that happen. But why? And I think it's because we're comparing to each other, and we're using kind of a false ideal as the baseline for our comparison. So when that happens, our own internal radar actually just completely gets shut off. And I know mine did. Like intuition, out the door. Discernment, out the door. Being able to process emotions, out the door. And I know that happens to so many of us because we're so caught up in what is everyone else thinking? What can I do to fit in or have that validation to be deemed worthy and to be deemed successful by what everyone else is kind of saying is the measure of success, or the measure of beauty, or measure of whatever. So I realized that not only is this ideal just unattainable, we're looking outside of ourselves and we're shutting ourselves down in the process. So it's like all this stuff that's happening. And then that's just like society stuff. I started thinking about just the idea and the concept of belonging and acceptance. So for me, there's kind of like another layer, and I know several people can kind of identify this, but identify with this. So I'm from a biracial family. We can say biracial family. Everyone looks different, and that also caused some strife for me because you go to a function, everyone looks different. You go to a school function, people are trying to figure out who's who, what's the relation, what's the this, and then the skin looks weird or different, the hair looks weird or different, the way people talk might be different, the experiences where people live, like all of that can all be different. So it's like adding so much complexity to fitting in, and it's like all these boxes that you're trying to check, all these categories that you're trying to fit into, and you're wondering like, where do I fit? And ultimately nowhere, maybe, according to society. Like you kind of try and fit in wherever you fit in. So I mentioned kind of the ultimate chameleon concept, and like that was me. Whatever I needed to do to fit in, whatever I needed to do to be accepted, to not rock the boat, to not stick out if I could help it. Like that's what I did. Again, suppression. And like decades later I realized that that is not the answer, but you don't know better until you know better, right? So being in this environment, how do you be comfortable? How do you understand who you are? How do you be comfortable with who you are and not see the flaws as flaws? See them just as characteristics and strengths even, and even extend them gratitude. Or you can't if you're coming from a specific mindset. And when you're in the space of what is everyone else thinking, how can I modify my behavior to make others comfortable versus being comfortable here in my own skin. When it's that external drive, you have to suppress. You have to deny maybe that intuition or deny the comforts because that might not agree with what others think or do or have or deem acceptable or successful. So knowing this, oh, Amanda, hey Amanda, you're not in a position where you can love and accept who you are. And again, I didn't know better. I was just doing what I did because I didn't know any better. I didn't know different. Everyone else was kind of doing the same thing. I got in where I fit in, and everything was fine. Fine to an extent. It relatively smooth sailing. But again, so in this reflection, I had to start asking the question, how do we get to the point of what's wrong with me? How come I don't fit in? To I'm comfortable with who I am, my experiences, what I am, and that's what matters most. So how do we get from there to there? And that's kind of where like the real uncovering started to happen for me. Like to really start thinking about what really is the thing that all of us are looking for, and then why. And ultimately, how do we achieve it and then maintain it? But what are we really looking for? And I know I've said this before, but I think the answer, like what we're actually looking for, is one, alignment. Like I think all of it actually comes down to alignment, but it boils down to acceptance and understanding. But of self and potentially of others. But I think it is of self. So boiling down to acceptance and understanding. And then once we have acceptance and understanding of self, and I'm going to mostly talk about of self to like get everyone else out. No more external, we're talking internal now. Once we have that acceptance and the understanding, then love and compassion and gratitude can also enter the scene. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Dr. Seuss quote, those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. Like, that is it exactly. Because you get to the point where you're comfortable. Like, you're comfortable here. And maintaining that is what matters. Like, being able to show up day in, day out, comfortable, being able to look in the mirror, go to sleep, and say, I did what I did. It was my best. And I was authentic to myself, my values, my knowing. And I'm good with that. Like, I showed up exactly how I wanted to show up, and we're good. So that's ultimately, like, one, the perfect quote, but two, where we want to get. But it's through that acceptance and understanding. Like, I think that's what we're actually trying to achieve. And when we have that, we can have the love, the gratitude. And when we have that, the love and the compassion, then we can have the gratitude. Whew, this one was big for me. The gratitude was big for me because from a health perspective, and I've had to look at this from like multiple different angles. So from the health perspective, going from the what's wrong with me, why don't I fit in, why is this happening, to this actually was a gift in disguise, and now I see that. So like going from I hate this, why is this happening to me, to I see the lesson and I appreciate it because it's actually what I needed to do the things that I actually want to do and came here to do. So gratitude for the experience and being able to look at the differences that we have from others and say, you know what? I'm glad that this aspect of me is different because, and then being able to list all the reasons why your experience is great and how it's additive to others' experience. Because it'd be boring if we were all the same, right? Like we couldn't exchange information and learn and grow. So there's value to it. And when we get to the place where we can have the tone of gratitude and the perspective of gratitude for getting through what we've gotten through, like what we've survived and experienced, we have that acceptance and we have the peace, like that peace that we're looking for, like that internal, no one can take it away from you type of peace. The peace and the knowing and the confidence. But also we're able to not only accept that certain things have happened, but we look at the body and say, thank you, body. Because every day you're supporting me. You're showing up, so therefore I have to show up. You haven't asked me to do anything, but you still show up. And despite the judgment, the abuse, the fear, the labels that we put on our bodies are still there to carry us. And whether it looks like, the model in the magazine or on TV or the influencer on social media or, whatever. That's not even in the conversation. Like that doesn't even matter because we see the gift and the beauty for what we have. We see the things that we offer, and then we're able to accentuate those. We're able to appreciate them and then offer that out to others. So we push our message and our gifts out instead of holding them in. But first, we have to get to the point of seeing and accepting who we are, not seeing flaws, but seeing it is what it is and it's a gift. And then thanking ourselves, our bodies, our creator, whatever you believe, thanking the fact that it is there and that it has happened. And I've had to do that. I definitely have had to do that. The, you know, being grateful for the health stuff, that's been a journey. Being grateful for kind of the diversity in family situation, super grateful for that, because I have different perspective, I have different appreciation for, what people are, how they act, what they look like, different viewpoints, because, everyone lives across the country and everyone has different experiences. But there's so much to gain from understanding that and being able to say, yeah, that's actually pretty cool, because now I'm exposed to so much more than I would have been. Knowing that, you can do different things with your hair, or you can do different things with, clothing preferences. Like, once you accept those differences and embrace them and say, yeah, this is mine, I own it, I'm going to rock it, it becomes a place of, you operate from a place of empowerment instead of victimhood, or why is this happening to me? So being able to see these things as gifts and not flaws and things to dread. One of the things that I think is a good teaching, A Course in Miracles. So this is, there are die-hard Course in Miracles followers. It's heavy reading, so it's not like light nighttime reading, but the main teachings from that, one of the main teachings is basically that we operate from one of two places at any given moment. One is a place of love and the other is a place of fear. So you're either operating from one or the other as you go about your day. And kind of thinking about this, like it's only one or two things. I started to think like, okay, well, if we're in a place of judgment of ourselves, of our body, of our experience, of whatever, which one of those are we operating from? And my conclusion was that if we're judging, we're coming from a place of fear. If we're thinking, I'm not enough, I need to fit in, I need approval from someone, if, something is too big or too small, or, not enough or too loud, like, that is coming from a place of fear. It's fear of having lack. It's fear of not living up to an ideal, or, judging because we don't have. So basically it's kind of a fear or a lack mindset. So that comparison, the judgment, all coming from a place of lack, but I'm positing that it's coming from a place of fear. And it, could be fear of anything. But like I said, not good enough, not fitting in, being too big or too small, or not enough experience, or, anything. And we think we need to make up something in some capacity. So we're less than, too much, not enough, like all these things, because we're afraid of something. And from this place, we can't see the good. If we're in fear, so one way that Abraham Hicks uses the analogy of like a stick. if you're on the end of fear, you cannot see the things that are at the end of love. You can't see them, you can't accept them. They're the farthest from the truth. So if you're here, there's no way you can have access to the things that are over here on this end. And again, if you're operating from fear, love is not in the picture. Your thoughts, your actions, your behaviors, the dreams that you have, they're gonna have a different tone than if you're over here from that love space. So the either or is something that I think is actually pretty powerful, because you can understand, one, they're polar opposites, but you can also see the wiggle room in between, and where something might not be accessible to you, you can actually do some digging in understanding, okay, why am I not having access to this? So when we're coming from the place of love, again, we don't have those fear thoughts. We're not wondering if we're good enough. We're not wondering if we have the experience. We're not wondering from, we're not wondering about the body or whatever. We're like, we know. We're cool, we're calm, we're collected, we're in flow. And things just are. There's no judgment. Again, there's no comparison. It's just acceptance. I am where I am, and I'm good with that. I have what I have, and I'm good with that. I did my best today, and that's what I had to give, and I'm good with that. My body is doing what it needs to do, whether I understand it or not, and I'm good with that. So coming from a place of love is very different from fear. And whether it's looking at ourselves through that lens or looking at others through the lens, there are very big differences in kind of the tone of the language that comes out of our mouths in our thoughts. And we need to be mindful of that, because I know I've heard kind of you can't find the solution when you're in the energy of the problem. It's the same idea, where being able to see the beauty in ourselves and our experience, the grit, the strength, the perseverance, the lessons in what we go through day to day, the opportunities that we have, and ultimately our ability to grow, that stuff is not accessible to us if we're in a certain state constantly. And we're supposed to be in that state. When we come out of the womb, we are worthy, we are valuable, we are love in its purest form. And somewhere along the way we forget about that, through that programming and all kind of the layers and the gunk that I was talking about earlier. We get away from that. But we are love, magic, pure potential, possibility, all of that goodness by default. And we forget it. And it takes some time for us to peel the layers back and remember. Some later than others, some earlier than others. We get there eventually, most of us. But knowing that is an amazing place to start from, because then there's some good. There's some good deep down. There is some good. But that can be a hard pill to swallow, because we're fed negativity, we're fed competition, we're fed external validation, we're fed conditional acceptance and conditional love. And that's not fair, because we suppress, we dim our light, we shut the intuition off, we forget, and we lose ourselves because we're so busy trying to understand the qualifications and the characteristics of what is acceptable, instead of listening to our own internal radar and seeing what feels good to us. And after years of people pleasing, years and years and layers and different ways of people pleasing, like I can tell you that, like, the realization of that for me was huge. And a man is agreeing with me, so I hear you, I'm with you. Remembering who we are and remembering what we are and remembering what we have to offer is, I mean, it's important. It's important because when we get caught up in all of the obligations and the responsibilities and the feelings of others, and I'm going to continue to say contorting and trying to cater to others, when we get caught in that, we lose ourselves. And when you're lost, when you can't find yourself, you don't know what you like, you don't know where your joy is, you don't know what lights you up. You might feel stuck. You might feel stressed and overwhelmed because you're potentially doing things you don't want to. I'm hello, preaching to myself here. Been there, done that. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. Our bodies tell us, our bodies talk to us and say, hey, this isn't in alignment. Hey, this doesn't feel good. Hey, you're on the wrong path. Hey, well, right and wrong. What is that? But hey, this doesn't feel good. And then because we're not used to listening to that internal radar system, we're like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because this is what I need to do to climb the ladder, make this other person happy, achieve this other thing that is supposed to mean I'm successful, or get this other degree or certificate, or, insert whatever accomplishment that we think we need to have that external acceptance and validation. And potentially lose who we are and our desires and our dreams and our joy and our light. And that remembrance of the love that we are and the love that we have to give. And I still struggle with this. Like, I'm not saying I have all of the answers by any means, because I am love, I am, pure light, love, potential, possibility. I still have a hard time saying, accepting, and believing that sometimes. I'm okay saying that. It's a day-to-day thing, sometimes moment to moment. And remembering that I don't have to grind and produce a certain number of things every single day to then deem myself valuable or accepting of the fact that, I can eat and go to bed and say that I've done something for the day. Like, that's a struggle when we're in a society that is production based. Like, what value did you create? Did you produce, X number of widgets? Did you, make X millions of dollars? Did you, what is the physical proof that you have that you were valuable today? That's not helpful. That's not helpful for anybody. That's where we get messed up. Because as I said before, we come out of the womb valuable. We come out worthy. We come out with all of these things that then get either stripped away from us or suppressed. So coming back to that remembrance of, we aren't the external things. We aren't production based. We don't have to earn a certain type of behavior and acceptance and love. We get to decide what that means for ourselves. We can choose whether to accept society ideals and, the characteristics and the criteria that determine success and acceptance, or we can define that for ourselves and let that be our guide. We get to choose. We do get to choose. But I will ask, what do you choose? Because everything really is a choice at the end of the day. Do you choose coming home? Do you choose having internal guidance kind of be that determining factor of, am I good? Am I comfortable looking at myself in the mirror? Am I comfortable, going to bed tonight knowing that I did what I needed to do? Did I show up in the way that I wanted to show up? Or do I feel a little off because I had to do some things today that I didn't really align with, but it made some people happy and, I met the deadline? We get to decide. And I've been in both camps. Do not get me wrong, I've been in both camps. And one camp is a little bit more exhausting than the other. One camp feels a little bit better, but it's a choice. And how we navigate both camps can be a choice, because it doesn't have to be an either or. I fully do appreciate the fact that it doesn't have to be an either or. Oh yeah, energy share on Sunday, 9 new. Yep. Not once did anyone ask, what do you do for work? Do you have kids? Do you have... Yeah. That's interesting because I know that I've been hard pressed to find things to say when not using that as the opener. It's like that's just like the standard, where do you live? What do you do? What are who are your kids, or do you have kids, or like those types of things. It can be really refreshing when that is not how people associate with you, because we're so much more than these occupations and careers than than we realize. So that's good. I'm glad you had that experience. That's amazing. Yeah, very refreshing. Okay, so how do we get back to this? Like, how do we get this magic back? Like, that's what we're all wanting to know, right? My question to you would be, what brings you joy? Do you know what brings you joy? Someone asked me this about a month ago, and it wasn't quite in the same wording, but the question was, when was the last time you felt joy? Like pure, unadulterated joy. And it took me a minute to really come up with an answer. It took a few minutes to come up with an answer. And this was a signal for me, because if we don't know the last time we've had joy, or it's been like years and years and years and years, we got to fix that. I think the reason for me to have such a long pause to respond to this question was, I've been figuring out health stuff for so long that I haven't allowed myself to get to that point, like the joy state. Last night in class we were talking about, how do you celebrate yourself? And I think the celebration and like joy and like being proud of yourself, that's kind of all in the same book. And that's been a journey as well, like being able to celebrate things openly and be like, yeah, I'm proud of myself, I did that. So it had been some years that I could very, very vividly remember that joyful state. And we had the person that asked me, we had a conversation about it. And I thought, gosh, I had to do something about that. I have got to do something about that. And I am, which is super exciting. So, more to come on that. But being able to find our joy and not what others would want you to feel as joy or define as joy, not I like this or I find joy in this because my spouse also does this, so I'll do it because they do it. Like, really, really getting clear on what brings me joy, what lights me up, what makes me happy, what could I talk about or do all day, every day, not get paid for it, and like not care, just not care. Maybe not the paid part, but if you're living your life, you're in joy, like everything's gonna flow, and you're gonna ultimately be supported over and over and exponentially anyway. So it's not even gonna matter. That's like that love and fear thing, right? That mindset of where we are and the things that come into our awareness. See, I'm connecting all this stuff for you guys. But getting back to the joy, so not catering to others, not others' opinions of what would bring you joy, like your actual true thought and belief of what brings you joy. So think about that. And getting to the point where you don't have to be so caught up with work and caught up with family and caught up with like life and obligations and all these, etc., where you can come back to self and actually answer the question of what brings me joy. So here's how we get there. A few ways. There are, ways, but here's some things that I've come up with that I've either worked on or am working on that have worked, have been effective. So, releasing the need to compare. So, how I said in the beginning, how like I looked at those pictures of me as a youngster and I was like, there's something wrong. In that one in particular, there's something wrong in that picture. I was comparing. Like I was comparing to everything that I was seeing around me that looked different from what I had. But you know what the problem is when we compare? The problem that we have when we compare is we forget that we're all on a different journey. When we sign up for this thing called life, from an astrology perspective, everyone's chart looks different. You've got your planets in different houses and you've got different signs and different things in different places. Everyone's chart's going to be different because we all have different things that we want to work on from that perspective. Or there's different lessons that we say we want, lessons and experiences we say we want to have and experience. We're all in a different lane, but yet somehow we find a way to compare ourselves to one another. Like the more that I've been thinking about this, the more I'm like, oh my, like how do we stop doing this? So releasing the need to compare, just stop it. Simply stop it. We have way more important things to do, like unwinding our own trauma, unwinding our own drama, figuring out what brings us joy, getting to know ourselves and what makes us tick, what makes us happy, what makes us sad. Am I operating from love or fear? Like, I don't know that if I'm caught up in comparing to other people all day, every day, and wondering what they think of me. So the need to compare, the desire to compare, that gets us in trouble because we're not in our lane. We're not running our race. We're peeking over the barrier, looking at someone else. We're looking in someone else's lane, trying to keep up with them when their lesson is completely different from ours. We can't do that anymore. We gotta stop doing that because we reclaim our power when we stay in our lane. We get that alignment when we stay in our lane. We're able to unwind things faster when we stay in our lane because we see it, we unwind it, we accept it and integrate it, and then move on to the next. And then have so much more to offer to others when we do that. So reclaiming our power, reclaiming our sovereignty when we stay in our lane and we don't compare. If the comparison is a learned behavior, we can give that back. We don't have to keep that. If we, have information that we now know because it was passed down to us, or I saw this really cool like random. I saw this really cool graphic about like generational experiences, and it was essentially like three different generations with like the so let's say your grandparents, your parents, and then yourself, and it was describing the characteristics of what the things that age group or generation would have gone through. And it was like the Great Depression and abuse and like all these things. Like, it was a whole bunch of labels, and then how that translated into the issues or experiences that their children had. And it was like some of the same stuff, but slightly altered. And then the next layer down was kind of us. So like how our parents would have passed things down to us, and kind of the experiences that we would have as an example of like the things that had been passed down. It was so fascinating because you realize a lot of the stuff is programmed. Like, it's generational, it's ancestral. We don't have to. We simply don't have to. So if you're in the space where you're kind of, I feel like I need to compare myself, or I feel like I need to keep up with the Joneses, or I feel like I need to do these things, but then like in your discovery, you're like, you know what? This actually isn't me. Like, if I'm coming from that just out of the womb, pure love, pure light, like, I'm not going to compare myself. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to do whatever I need to do, and I'm going to like rock it. So if it isn't yours, you can reclaim that power. You can give it back. You don't even have to give it back to the person. You can just say, I'm not doing this anymore. This is not part of my story anymore. This is not something I'm willing to accept. So therefore I choose differently. You get the power to choose and reclaim anything you want. So you can give that back. One thing that I do like doing, well, I'll use relative. Standing in front of a mirror. So it's a mirror exercise. There's a variety of different ways to do this. All of it's the same intent. And this, again, coming back to self, getting to the point where we understand why we think the flaws are the flaws. And going from this is a flaw to this is something I accept and I even embrace and love about myself. So standing in front of a mirror, no clothes. Stand in front of a mirror naked and literally observe yourself. Observe the body, where you think things are too big, too small. There's a scar here, there's a scar there, there's a this, there's a that. Like, observe and see what comes up. The first time I did this, I was just in tears because I realized all of the judgment I had placed on my body, and a lot of it was not mine. It was based on all sorts of programming that I had adopted from, all walks of life. And I had let that become my reality. I let that get into my psyche, and my truth was that something was wrong with me. And I had to give that back. My time with that as my reality was enough. So this can be a really powerful exercise if you allow yourself to kind of just go into it. Bring a journal and jot down what comes up. Is your body holding certain beliefs or emotions or programming? Are you that are yours, that you came up with on your own? Is it society's programming? Is it parental programming? Like, where's it coming from? Um, See what you come up with. And if you're not able to kind of do like the full in the mirror, just get in the bathroom, get in the kind of the vanity mirror, and look at your face. Look at, what is, because there's still a lot, like a lot of people actually can't, avoid mirrors, don't look at themselves for long periods of time in the mirror. I know, like with Zoom now, or like virtual settings, like with Zoom and everything, since we're on screen, you really don't have a choice but to look at yourself if you've got your camera on. But for a lot of people, that can be difficult, like looking at yourself in the mirror and just observing. So you can also do the same thing, seeing what comes up there, and that can be just as powerful. Okay, increasing gratitude. That one has been big. I talk a lot about gratitude because it's been key to my journey. It's been key to my journey as I kind of asked in the beginning, how do you get from I hate this, what's wrong with me, to I appreciate this and love the lessons that I'm getting and everything that comes along with it. It's gratitude. I vividly remember like the lowest of days, the darkest of times, and all the negative thoughts that I put towards myself and my body and my experience and everything. Like, it was not pretty. So, and I know I didn't know better, so that's fine. But because I know how that can impact my experience and my body, I don't do that anymore. Or at least I catch myself when I do that. And it isn't near as often as it used to be, which is good. That's always, progress. But being able to shift to the lensing and perspective of gratitude and appreciation will change your life. Like, literally, like that mindset shift will change things significantly. And I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am today without being able to say thank you and see the good in where I am and where I've been. And because I can do that, I can continue to progress along this journey, better, faster, more informed, stronger than when I got here. So thanking my body, thanking my circumstances, being able to see why I'm in a certain situation. Like the phrase bloom where you're planted, that's kind of what it is. That's about gratitude. So being able to see circumstances and situations and feelings and, illnesses, to see if there's any beauty there, to see if there's any good there, that can be extremely valuable in that comfortable in your skin body love journey. And remember, if you're not coming from a place of love, you're coming from a place of fear. So that gratitude is actually on the end of love. Coming from fear or love, which is a good segue. So getting clear on what I'm calling your operating system. So getting clear on where you're normally operating from. Is your baseline, oh my God, I'm fat, I'm tired, I can't figure this out, I hate this? Like, if that's your narrative, or is it, I'm good where I am, things are working out, I can figure this out? Like, which one is getting more airtime? Being able to kind of understand your talk track during the day can be, again, mindset, but can be really, really helpful in getting more comfortable with yourself. So again, as I was kind of mentioning with like doing the mirror, like standing in front of the mirror, if our bodies are holding things that we've picked up, generationally or otherwise, then that includes our thoughts. We can pick that stuff up too. Sometimes the thoughts that we're saying like actually aren't ours. If you were thinking about when you're growing up, like what are some of the things that you heard when something went wrong? Oh crap, oh, I'm so stupid, I should have remembered. Or, oh, oh, I wish I would have, had this or done this better because I would have been like so and so. Totally making these things up. Or, oh, I messed this up and I didn't get it this time, but that's okay because this is the lesson that I learned as a result. Is there a negative spin? Is there a positive spin? Is your operating system love or fear? Is your operating system positive or negative? Being able to understand where you're operating from can be huge, because one, you get that kind of objective, like stepping back and saying, okay, what is this? Where is this coming from? Why am I saying this? Then you can ask the question, is this where I want to come from? Or do I need to do some work to kind of switch this around? You can also do the love and the fear. So if you're, in a conversation or having a thought about whatever, is this thought coming from a place of love or fear? If I were coming from a place of whatever the opposite is, what would I do? What would I say? How would I act? So being able to kind of ask yourself questions, and I talk to myself all the time, so like this is normal for me. But some people might need to journal this or actually talk it out with someone. Perfectly fine. You don't need to talk to yourself in order to do this. But being able to kind of have that wherewithal to just take a step back, take a pause, and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Do I need to change anything with this? Am I damaging myself? These beliefs, these words, this pattern of behavior, is this helping me or hurting me? Ultimately. 2 more. Give your body a voice. Yeah, Christy. The one thing about wearing a mask is I talk to myself a lot more in public because I don't get caught. So if you ever see me in public, and I'm likely talking to myself. But I have gotten caught, which is funny. I keep doing it, but I have gotten caught. It was pretty funny. So giving your body a voice. Start a conversation. What feels good to your body? Body, what feels good to me right now? Is what I'm doing feeling good? If I say yes to going to this event, does this feel good? If I say no to doing this thing, does it feel good? This can be for food, for clothing, for exercise, for anything, any activity. Seeing if these things feel good. Again, how in the kind of beginning I was talking about suppressing our radar and suppressing our intuition and what naturally feels good to us. Like, we have the intuition. Everyone has the intuition. So when we're kind of muddied down with all the things from other people, we get lost. We can't find ourselves. We can't hear or find our intuition. Start that conversation. Body, what feels good? Tonight, wearing white felt good. I don't know why. I just asked. I went with it. But being able to start that conversation and reactivate or strengthen that intuition and that connection gives us a little bit more confidence, gives us a little bit more comfort in our skin. One coach that I worked with a while ago, she had us do an exercise of when we were getting ready in the morning. She would have us ask, what would magic look like today? What would magic feel like today? And we were supposed to ask that question before getting ready for work in the morning. And whatever we, got the answer to, whatever magic looked like that day, that's what we were supposed to wear because ultimately, we would feel better and potentially have a better day looking, wearing those things. The thing about that would give you a little bit more pep in your step, right? That would be if I'm asking what would magic be like, what would magic act like, what would magic say, what would magic wear, operating from that place. There's exploration and play in that as well, but you got to be willing to go there. But again, giving your body a voice is important. It's so important. And last one, once you have the voice, you can take better care. So care for your body, that's the last one. You're clear on who you are. You're clear on what you like and you don't like. You're clear on what brings you joy. You're clear about actually having a radar system. You're asking questions. You're being kind of objective and saying, is this someone else's belief or thought? Did I inherit this? Is this mine? Did I create this? We're caring. We're starting the conversation. We're asking those questions. So now we can make conscious decisions about how to care for the body, how to be more comfortable in the decisions that we make, and ultimately living more fully, living more happily, with clear motivations and what's driving us in our day-to-day. So we can do more of what we love when we're caring for our body, but all these other things kind of need to be in, well, they don't have to be in place. It's good when those other things are in place because it flows a little bit easier. But when you've got that connection and you have that conversation, you can clearly get a sense of what your body wants. Is it painting? Is it going for a walk? Is it dancing? Is it cooking a good meal? Is it going for a massage? You get a better sense of the variety of things that your body might want and the variety of things that might bring you joy versus what you thought brought you joy because you base it on something external to self. And when you get clear on what those things are, do it. Schedule it. Hold the boundary. Make that a priority because we're worth it. We're worth feeling good, being taken care of on our own, being empowered, having that sovereignty. We're allowed to have that. We're worth it. We're supposed to have that. We're supposed to feel good. We're supposed to feel comfortable in our skin. Nixing all of the external stuff that's going on, we're allowed to feel comfortable here. And that's what this is about. So it's very much a mindset game. It's mindset. It is understanding the programming that we're subjected to. It's knowing that we have a choice. Once we have this information, we have a choice to do something with it. So you can do whatever you want with this. But these are the things that I've found helpful in my own journey and continue to find helpful because it's evolving. It's evolving daily. But this is something, all the stuff I talk about, this is something that's really personal for me, given the background that I kind of shared in the beginning. It's been a journey, being comfortable in my own skin and not feeling pressured to compare and not feeling pressured to do the things that don't feel good. And actually ask myself, okay, what do I like? What do I want? What feels good? What brings me joy? And not have to pause for 10 minutes to figure out what brings me joy. Or the last time I felt joy. I think we owe that to ourselves. To start to peel back those layers and really get a sense of who we are, what we are, at the end of the day, like without the programming, without the pressures, without the obligations. That I think is important. I think that's important. So I hope this was helpful. Um, it's been helpful for me, kind of just going through all of this stuff and, like I said, reflecting on this journey and where it is and where it's going. So I hope this is helpful. I hope that if you have your own stories about kind of self-love, body love, worth, feeling comfortable in your skin, that you can share those. I love to hear what other people go through, what works, what doesn't work. I always love to try new things. I know, like I said, I don't have all the answers. So I'm very interested to hear your perspective in this. So I hope this is helpful. I will be in touch.